The following is a production of DallasCowboys.com and the Dallas Cowboys Football Club.
How about them Cowboys?
Yeah! Go Cowboys! This is Talkin Cowboys. Streaming live from Dallas Cowboys training camp in Oxnard, California.
Howard streaks in, touchdown. Parsons has sacked it. Prescott keeps it, and he bangs it into the touchdown.
And now your hosts, Isaiah Stanback, Nick Harris, John Machota, and Kyle Youmans.
It's time for a Tuesday edition of Talkin Cowboys, presented by Black Rifle Coffee Company, live from Oxnard, California, in the site of Training Camp 2023. We've got half the crew here this week after having everybody here last week, which is it's unfortunate, but it's exciting. What's up, Nick Harris?
Yeah, I'm doing good. It's so lonely over here. It's overcast. Our people are gone, but no, I'm excited for it.
It feels like the last week of camp. There's not a single Radio Row 10. All of the cushy radio stations have gone back to hide in their studios, and they've kind of just been missing for the last week and a half, 2 weeks, and then you've got the media. There's just select media that are kind of hanging around. These are the real Cowboys reporters right here.
This is for the real grinders.
Yeah.
This is for the real grinders.
That's
right
what
here.
it is. Speaking of a real grinder, Nate Newton, I called him a couple minutes ago, and I said, hey, we only have 2 on the show today. Is there any way you can make it? He's on his way. So we've got reinforcements coming.
Love it.
Just like the Dallas Cowboys.
They do
have a reinforcement coming. And that's probably the top story about training camp. And we'll get to the preseason game. We'll get to how I kind of let Cowboys Nation, Talking Cowboys Nation, down by not saying zebras or no cap or whatever it was on the broadcast. That's all on me. I didn't say any of them. I let Beam down, as he's letting me know back behind. I let everybody down in that regard, but I had a lot of fun calling the game. We'll talk about that in a moment, talk about that in the second segment. But first, Zack Martin is back on campus, and it feels like there should be a parade for the guy as he walks in or bikes in or whatever ends up happening.
Yeah, Captain is here. I think it comes at a really important time. I know we talked about it on the Camping Out podcast last night, but you had said early on in this whole ordeal that I think he'll be back right after the first preseason game, and sure enough, you were right. He came in. That news broke yesterday afternoon, and he came in yesterday evening. It was funny because me and Patrick No-C Walker, a former trader of the show. By
the way, he's going to be back on Thursday. So
he will. That's crazy. I didn't even know that.
Thursday,
That's breaking news for the entire world to know. But we were out staking out front, just kind of waiting on him to walk in. Just so we know when he walks in. And Haley Sutton and our team photographer, Kalina Williams, they walk up to us. They had been somewhere else the whole day. They're like, hey, did y'all see Zach? And we were like, nah, he hasn't walked in yet. And they're like, he's right over there. I was like, how did we miss him walking in? So it was kind of a funny moment yesterday. But yeah, he was all smiles yesterday. He got the raise that he wanted. And it works for both sides financially, because I think the problem that the front office was running into was, we really want to give Zach what he wants and what he's earned, but at the same time, we have to give extensions to these guys like Micah Parsons, CeeDee Lamb, potentially Tony Pollard down the line, Terrence Steele. I mean, the list goes on. So you had to, if you gave money to Zach in an extension, then it had to take sacrifice to those guys. Yeah. But they were able to restructure it to where it's not an extension. He just gets an $8 million raise over the next 2 years. That doesn't really affect those extension talks. Those guys still have the same amount of money on the table. So it works for both sides financially, but I think more important than anything, it gets Zack Martin back on the field at a really important time here at training camp and before week 1, because, in an offense where the running game still needs to be established 100% behind Tony Pollard, you need a guy like Zack Martin to help facilitate that run game at right guard, and it gives you your best player on the offensive line. So that's going to help with the new offense overall.
It gives you a leader. It gives you a presence, and it gives you just some added stability, which I think all three things are something that Dallas needed up front. I mean, it's no secret. I mean, this is a young offensive line. This is an offensive line that needs a guy like Zack Martin in the fold, and it's been unfortunate to not see him out on the field. We haven't really had the chance to talk about it a lot, just because, I mean, it is what it is. He's holding out and he's not here, and nothing really changed. It didn't look like it was going to change. I'm happy that it did, though, because now you got a chance to move forward. It feels like this team was doing everything they could up to a certain point, because up to that certain point, you don't have Zack Martin. And if you don't have Zack Martin, it's hard to really further your ball club. Now they can continue to push forward together, and that's what I'm excited about. He'll probably see limited reps. He's been working out. He's been working with Coach Merriweather back at back in Dallas, and he's been active all the way through. But then now he's got a chance to get these live reps in practice, and he's going to continue to push forward. So what do you expect from Zack Martin this week? Whenever you get a chance to sit down and finally watch him on the field, how do you feel like he'll fare?
Yeah, it's probably going to be a ramp up, just knowing how Mike McCarthy operates, and I don't want to neglect the walk up right now of the great Nate Newton. So welcome to Nate Newton to the show, everybody.
Hey, glad you guys invited me, man. Wow.
Well, we're talking about the guy who has started training camp for you, right?
Yes, sir.
Begins it.
Training camp has officially started today. Zack Martin is back, and man, I am excited. I am overjoyed.
The question that Kyle had for me that I think would be a good question for you as well is what do you think he brings week one? Is it more of a ramp-up stage and getting him into that mode? But also I think leadership off the field is going to be the big part of this week, correct?
He's the glue. He's the glue. He's the glue to our center. Biotis, he's the glue to Terrence Steele of making our offensive line solid. What he does, and I'm going to go a little bit deeper if you'll give me a chance.
Sure.
What he does is, last week, me and you was talking about how the young kid, Awesome, gave up a sack. Where if Zack Martin would have been in there, our quarterback could have stepped up into the pocket, because what it is, we have a soft middle now, and everybody's getting pushed back 3 to 5 yards. That leaves our quarterback not a lot of room to step up and to maneuver inside the pocket. Zack Martin will cut half of that down. He will allow our tackles to be better so they can just run guys around the edge and stay with them, where it's not having a two-way go. That is what he does. He gives Biotis a sense of confidence, to know that he'll step down there, secure that block while he's looking out, taking care of Steele on that right side. This guy's the ultimate team player. He's the ultimate team leader, and we need this guy if we're going to be successful this year.
Yep.
What do you think?
Yeah, it just allows more depth in that pocket. When you can have a guy that'll keep his guy on the line of scrimmage, that just kind of opens up the whole thing for whoever's at quarterback, whether it be Will Greer, Dak Prescott, Cooper Rush, so on and so forth. We probably won't see Zack Martin during the preseason, but it's great that we have him week one. Again, I mentioned it on the podcast last night. It's so nice that this happened before week one rather than week 8, just because they can get this new offense going with everyone up front. They can get this new running game going with everybody up front. So I think this happened at the perfect time for everybody involved. Maybe maybe right at the buzzer for everybody involved. But nevertheless, I think it works for both sides financially, and it works for both sides on the field.
Well, I mean, for as much as it does feel like it was right at the buzzer, I mean, look at the dates. I mean, it's Tuesday, August 15th. The first game is September 10th. I mean, it's still almost an entire month, 5 days short of a month of getting Zack Martin back into the fold before that week 1 matchup.
The reason I say at the buzzer is just because if this time that was spent without Zack Martin was spent evaluating A, a potential replacement at right guard, or B, somebody that's reliable to rotate in at right guard, I don't believe either of those tasks were accomplished. I think Zack Martin needs to be here to help lead that room a little bit, to find the answer to either of those questions, or to just be that buffer until they can find that guy or bring him in.
More important, he needs to be on the field.
Yeah.
Because now we can start practice, and I'll give you an example. We have not had a pressure drill, and the pressure drill consists of blitzes by linebackers. It's a passing situation. It is about 12 plays. And every start of every pressure drill, it starts out 4 bad plays for the offense. Sack, sack, sack. And that is because our offensive line has no continuity. What this guy, Zack Martin, brings continuity. Number one, by stopping his man up on the offensive line like you talked about earlier, giving our tackles a sense of confidence to run these guys around by giving a hand to our center so he can stabilize himself. And now our new left guard, which is our old left guard, Smith, can do his job. Yeah. So now it just stabilizes everything. We need consistency. You talked about that last night, Kyle, a lot on Camping Out podcast. The consistency that he brings of being a guy that plays up on the line of scrimmage, or be able to move people off the ball when it's a run situation, it gives us creases. Now our running backs will be better, and we'll see a better team. He brings physical as well as mental consistency.
Do you think the reps without him in training camp have been – I think
good,
disappointing.
Just good reps.
Yes,
sir.
That's now that he's back in the fold. Do you think this is where we can see the benefit of those reps and
the
benefit of not having him there, not being able to rely on a guy like Zack Martin around you, and then you take the step up and you're like, oh, now 70 is in there, and now I can rely on a guy like this.
You know what's so funny? And now he is not Magic Johnson. The Lakers were a good team without Magic, and they probably could have went into the playoffs without Magic. With Magic, now you see a world championship team, and I'm not saying this guy's going to make us a world championship team,
sure,
but now I believe more than ever that we have a shot at the NFC championship. I believe that because what he does, and I'll say it 1,000 times, is he just gives us consistency. He gives us a solid wall up front. So when we're calling 3-step drops and 5-step drops, we know it's going to happen. And more importantly, when we call that ultimate 7-step drop, to sit back and let Cooks get behind somebody, we know he can stand tall, step up in the pocket with it and throw off of that, and throw it however you do the little jerk. So you know what I'm saying? And he can really release it.
We practice that every morning, don't we?
Yeah.
We're in the
getting after it.
Yeah.
He's 32. And I believe he turns 33 at some point this season at some point along the way. Is 25 days or however long it is until week 1, is that enough to ramp this guy up and get him ready to go?
Absolutely.
I know. I mean, he's Zack Martin, and he is shown to this point that it feels like he's almost indestructible to a certain extent. But, I mean, at some point, age does come into play for everybody. I mean, Father Time's undefeated in the world of sports. I'm not even saying it's a worry. I don't think it is for me. I think he's going to be fantastic. But is there any sort of concern on just how quickly he's going to have to ramp up without those first team snaps?
There was a question that Mike McCarthy got in a press conference, I believe it was last week, and it was asked whenever Zach gets here, with this new offensive system, is there going to be a little bit of a learning phase for him? Are y'all going to have to get him up to speed? And Mike was very quick. He's like, no, everything we're doing he already has in his bag.
That's good.
I think, if anything, it just brings another teacher into that room. I mean, you have a guy who's been absorbing this information during mini camp and OTAs. The holdout only started about a month ago, so it's not that like Zack Martin hasn't been deep in that playbook since then. So I think it helps across the board for just him being here. I don't think there's going to be any sort of lapse there.
It is always a connect. Whenever a guy was holding out with us, either a player or a coach or assistant was always calling, hey, this is where we at. This is where we know you're holding out, but hey, look at your playbook. This is what we changed. This affects you. Don't worry about that. We can get past. It's always a connect. So he's not behind. He's not behind. And the thing that we need to understand is there wasn't anyone on the street. There wasn't anybody in the camp that was close, because some things you can wait on, and I'll give you an example. We can wait to see who can be the number 2 running back, but you can't wait to see who's going to be your first team starter at offensive guard, because it's too big of an impact.
It's a big impact, and you can feel the impact from his return. I mean, I was talking to Coach Linda Wells the other day, and he said, man, the big story is that big man's back on campus. He said, let's throw a parade. Like, let's make sure he's welcome out here, and I'm sure Cowboys fans will be very excited to see him back out on the field as the Cowboys do hit a full padded practice today and tomorrow here in Oxnard before really ramping up and then traveling to Seattle on Friday. But when we come back here on Talkin Cowboys, we can maybe continue the Zack Martin conversation, how it affects the offensive line. But I also want to take a look back at preseason week number 1 and the matchup against Jacksonville. Some good, some bad, some to work on for the Cowboys after the first preseason game. We'll talk about it next on more Talkin Cowboys.
Todd thought it would be secure to jog in the cheetah savanna. Todd believed the big cat repellent he bought online was reliable. And now, Todd is trying to be faster than this cheetah that can run 80 miles per hour. But the good news is, Todd has AT&T 5G that is fast, reliable, and secure. And he learned the best thing to do is stop running and toss her the backpack with the beef stew. AT&T 5G. Fast, reliable, secure. It's not complicated.
5G requires compatible plan and device. 5G may not be available in your area. See att.com/5G for you for details.
Are you ready to take coffee off your grocery list forever? Black Rifle Coffee Club is here to help. As a coffee club member, you'll get your favorite coffees roasted, packaged, and shipped to your door free of charge on your preferred schedule. Set it, forget it, and never run low on coffee again. Members also get exclusive deals on coffee, products, and discounts from partner brands. Ease your mind and let Black Rifle worry about your coffee supply. Go to blackriflecoffee.com to join the coffee club today.
Cowboys fans, after that move, we've just coined the term Rowdy Replay. Let's roll back the tape.
Okay, there's our mascot Rowdy cheering on the boys, and now he's on his phone on his Bank of America mobile banking app?
Staying on top of his finances with his virtual financial assistant, Erica.
Bank of America's digital tools are so impressive. Cowboys fans just can't stop banking. Learn more at bankofamerica.com/can't-stop-banking.
Erica is only available in the English language. You must download the latest version of the mobile banking app, only available on select mobile devices. Message and data rates may apply. Member FDIC.
They say champions are remembered, but legends are never forgotten. United Ag and Turf offers a winning lineup of John Deere equipment built to tackle any challenge on and off the field. Legendary John Deere tractors, combines, residential mowers, commercial mowers, compact construction equipment, Gator utility vehicles, and a full line of golf and sports turf equipment. United Ag and Turf, the official Ag and Turf equipment supplier of the Dallas Cowboys. Visit UnitedAgAndTurf.com to find a location near you.
Back to Talkin Cowboys.
Welcome back to Talkin Cowboys, presented by Black Rifle Coffee Company, the official coffee of the Dallas Cowboys. This portion is brought to you by Quaker Oats, a super trusted superfood. Quaker Oats, the official oatmeal sponsor of your Dallas Cowboys. We have some text on the text line, Cowboys Podcast text line, 817-290-3298. Send us your text messages, your questions. We're talking first game of the preseason. Cowboys fall to Jacksonville 28-23 at AT&T Stadium. It was a great atmosphere, great crowd. Ultimately, the Cowboys just fell short in a come-from-behind effort. They took the lead in the third quarter. Everything was working in their direction, and then a guy named Nathan Rourke had made a couple extra plays, a couple big plays on Dallas. So definitely some room to grow, a ton of positives to take out of that first game, and I want to get y'all's impact on that. But, yeah, give us a text, 817-290-3298. I see Bruno here from Staten Island, New York, says, great show, guys, longtime Cowboys fan, and he enjoys listening to us. And since I married a girl from Staten Island, I'll have to shout out Bruno. So there you go.
Bruno, that's sick.
That's a pretty sick name.
That's a sick name for Staten Island.
All right, let's take a look at the Jacksonville matchup. What were your thoughts on what you saw in Arlington on Saturday?
I want to start defensively, just because this defensive unit that trotted out there to start the game got reps against the first team, and they got reps against the second team, most of those guys. And two guys specifically really shined, and Damone Clark and DeMarvion Overshown. I think there's a lot of concern about the linebacker depth on this team. I think the more these guys get on the field and the more that these guys get reps, I think the more that those concerns should be quieted a little bit, just because these guys not only have youth with experience, but they also have athleticism that flies them across the field from sideline to sideline. We saw that on Saturday afternoon. Damone Clark specifically was all over the place. DeMarvion Overshown had a huge stop on 3rd and 1 where he just filled a gap and stood tall like a brick wall. So I really liked what I saw from both of those guys. You know, Mozzie Smith, he had some ups, he had his downs. I think it was what you could expect from a rookie. You could say that for the rookies across the board, aside from Overshown, who had a great day. Yeah. You know, it's those bright lights, and that's going to be tough to overcome for your very first game. But I think there's going to be a lot of things to work on for Mozzie, but at the same time, he's on his track. He's on the track for high potential.
And I agree with you, man. But offensively, man, I was just Jake Ferguson, just to see him step in and make the blocks that he made and to catch the passes that he caught. That was awesome. And last night we did the Camping Out show, and I just can't speak enough defensively about 33 and 35 Overshown and the other kid. It just was a marvel to see, because I've been concentrating mostly on running backs and tight ends and linemen and just worried myself to death. So when I look at the defense, because, all you see is number 11. But A lot of people was telling me about Overshown and the other kid, 33 from LSU. His name
Damone
is
Clark.
Damone Clark. I don't know why I can't grab his name because this guy.
You gotta
better remember it.
But you know, I'm a Landry.
It's
too.
gonna make you remember.
I'm old Landry too. You know, call them by their numbers. It's more simpler.
It is.
You know,
It is. It really
but these two guys opened my eyes and made me realize like these kids can actually be. Well, one of them already is, but Overshown can play day one.
Yeah.
If the season was to open tomorrow and coach said, hey, Overshown is our nickel Mike backer, I would not have a problem with it. They just make plays. They come downhill. And when they don't make the play, they're still in the right gap. They're in the right place. And that forces you to other guys. And so I'm with you. The defense, to me, has no holes. Our offense, that's just it's a different story, which we talked about in the first segment. So.
Yeah, and I think the stronger point with the defense that we've come to get accustomed with over the course of the last, I guess, 10 to 12 games that they've played is the fact that all 11 guys do their job, and that was evident in a preseason game. So I think that's huge towards the potential of this defense this year. Because when everybody's on the same page, everybody's doing their job. Then whenever that second level has to fill gaps, that's all they got to do. They just got to do their job. They don't have to step back in coverage because a nickel missed their assignment. They don't have to fill a gap that they're not supposed to because a defensive lineman's in the wrong place. So it's going to be fun. This defense is going to be great, and I think we could see that even in the preseason with a lot of the starters that were already out.
I asked Dan Quinn on Thursday last week. Got a chance to sit down with him and kind of prepare some content for the Seattle game that's coming up. And I asked him the question. I was like, who has been the biggest, not surprise, but who's been the best rookie? Who's been one of the rookie standouts on your unit? And it hit the first name, and it was no hesitation. He said D. Overshown.
Yeah.
He really likes what he's seen from DeMarvion Overshown. And I said rookie specifically, so keep that in mind. I mean, there's a couple guys there. He also brought up Eric Scott Jr. a couple seconds later, just talking about what he's done and grasping the defense and knowing his assignments. But the fact that Overshown is doing what he can, when he was drafted, everybody looked at each other and said, that's a Dan Quinn guy. That was long, rangy, has some safety background, has some position versatility. That's a Dan Quinn guy. And he can put him anywhere and play him anywhere and just hope that an offense doesn't know what he's doing, and that's a pretty good hope. So based off of what you've seen from these linebackers, it's almost the opposite of what happened with the offensive line. You came into camp saying offensive line depth and linebacker depth. You need some young guys to step up in both regards. I could argue right now that offensive line hasn't had a step up, hasn't had a show out in terms of the depth, but the linebackers certainly have, with both Damone Clark, DeMarvion Overshown. I thought Malik Jefferson, prior to the injury on Saturday, was having a fantastic camp too. So I think the linebacker depth has stepped up in a way that the offensive line depth hasn't.
I'll say this about the offensive line depth. There are some guys that have, A, surprised me during camp, and B, have taken the next step. But I just don't feel like anybody is really taking that step to be the sixth guy, to be that guy who can be relied upon if someone goes down. You mentioned TJ Bass. You mentioned Austin Richards. I think he had a really strong outing on Saturday afternoon. Brock Hoffman is another guy that had a really strong outing on Saturday afternoon as the center. Got a lot of reps at center, which was interesting to see as a potential interior depth guy. But I just need to see one or even two of those guys take that next step and be the sixth or seventh guy. So I just feel like we haven't seen that.
And what we mean by that is be consistent. Mm-hmm. See, you're not going to, as offensive lineman, your hands are not going to always be perfectly inside, or you're not going to always have a perfect deuce block where you split it right down the middle. But guys that refuse to give up, guys that are willing to fight, take a stance, and this is what we're talking about. We just need for a guy to say, hey, I'm the man. You may run over me, but you know what? It's going to be a trench this wide in the ground with me hankering down to fight you every step of the way. That's what we need, and that comes with reps. For Hoffman and all these guys and Awesome and these guys, they need reps. And sometimes I think you have to move on from other guys to give these guys the rep. So I want to watch practices to see who's the starting, who's the backup left guard, who's the swing tackle, because now with coaches watching film, they should be narrowing it down And by the end of this game that's coming up, we will see it even more. Who is the backup guys?
Who do you feel like right now is that guy? The guy that's most likely to step up and fill that role that you're alluding to, the one that you're saying, hey, I'm going to step up and push it.
I think is awesome. I mean, it could be different for him, but I think I would give 76 the opportunity.
Okay,
I would too.
To be the swing tackle, and I would work him there exclusively. And I'm not one of these guys that believe that if one guy go down, and we all talking about Tyron Smith, if he goes down, now you slide this guy out, and you put this guy. You got to make 8 moves for one guy. I'm just praying that if something happened to Tyron, we leave Tyler Smith at the guard, and we have Awesome. Or we have Edoga. He's stiff. I don't like him, but not as a human, but as a player. He's stiff as an iron board, man. I see iron boards have more flex. But that isn't my guy. Maybe he's a gamer, like the guy we brought in last year, the big kid, the All-Pro Hall of Famer last year.
Jason Peters?
Yeah. He could give us 30, 40 plays. And that's what we would need from these guys.
I think with Chuma Edoga, his body type is more of a guard. It's more of an interior guy, and that's where he's gotten a lot of his reps during his NFL career too. So, before he went down with injury last week, I wanted to see a lot more reps at interior. But to that same point, I was talking with Nick Eatman yesterday, and he brought up a really good point. The fact that Awesome Richards started at left tackle was really interesting, and I think we've been thinking about that over the course of the last few days. And Nick was like, yeah, it was probably set for Chuma to get that start at left tackle, but then once he went down, Awesome had to step in and take those reps, and that's a really good point. And I think Awesome did really well with that challenge. I'm excited to talk to Awesome today because I just want to talk to him about that game planning and having to kind of cram for that test. But he did well at left tackle, and when he slid into left guard, I think he did even better. So I want to see more reps at both of those spots for him.
The 210 sending us a text saying, good morning, guys. What have you seen from TJ Bass, and do you think he could step in if something is needed from him?
His strength is in his legs, and he has to play through that. He's got to get a better strike, and he's got to always play from a leverage position. He's always got to play with his knees bent and his hips bent and his head up and his chest back. So he's going to have to be a technician, but I think Coach Solari likes him, and he's going to give him opportunity. But with all preseason games, the first one, the guys that have already been established gets the first run. After the preseason game, then it's every man for himself. Now coaches will say, you know what, let's put 76 there, which is awesome. Let's put TJ Bass, which I think is 66. Let's put him at this right guard, and let's give him a first run with the first team. They'll mix and match.
Yeah, and the thing with TJ Bass, I know I've talked about it on the show a couple of times, I think. It's what he comes from. His offensive line coach at Oregon that went out of his way to go recruit him whenever he was coming out of the JUCO ranks. Alex Mirabal, who in my opinion is the best offensive line coach in the country. It's hilarious because he's like 5'4". He's this tall, but he's
Tony Wise,
exactly.
My old coach. Yeah,
but man, he that technique is what is so strong with him. And guys that come out of that system at Oregon, Mirabal is now at Miami, but guys that were coming out of that system at Oregon come out with so much technique and just pristine movement, and I see that from TJ Bass. He has those strong legs, like you said. He has that lower half that drives forward. He's got the great hands. So it's just about putting it together and, like you said, staying consistent. That's going to be the biggest thing for him.
And while Saturday was also our first opportunity to see the offensive line, it could also be our first opportunity to see Mike McCarthy as the play caller as well, and how this West Coast scheme could work out and how it could continue to build as well. I mean, it's a very thin margin of the playbook, but we got a question from the 817. Billy, he says, was the play calling just held back? Was he rusty? Was it vanilla? What did you guys see from the way that Mike McCarthy called the game? I didn't have any problem with it. It's the first preseason game. It's probably going to be a little bit vanilla, because you don't want to show anything on offense. But what did you guys think?
Yeah, and you also have to think KYP, know your personnel. And the personnel that was on the field doesn't necessarily reflect what will be out there in week one, especially from a skill perspective. I mean, you didn't have CeeDee Lamb, you didn't have Brandon Cooks, you didn't have Tony Pollard, you didn't have Dak Prescott. So, as far as play calling specifically, you have to keep it kind of quote-unquote dry. I don't want to call it dry, but I guess that's the best way to put it. Just because you yeah, I know. I'm a little parched right now.
I'll get a Black Rifle drink.
There you go.
Where's the Black Rifle?
He's good, man. You're good at the sponsor thing.
You fit well on this show, Nate.
Isaiah would love you.
Yeah.
Shoot, I lost my train of thought, but it's all good. The play calling. I think it was dry to a certain extent, but you don't want to open up everything in the preseason. I think what we could take away from a play calling perspective is that he's going to put the guys on the field, he's going to play to their strengths. Yeah. And one specific moment stood out to me. It wasn't executed, but they were put in the right spot to execute. The Cowboys were in plus territory. I believe it was late in the second quarter or early in the third, and had about a 2nd and 8 situation, and they went back-to-back slants to Jalen Brooks, and Will Grier couldn't connect with him on either of those attempts. It was kind of rough for Jalen Brooks to get either of those attempts, but what we've seen through camp is Jalen Brooks taking those slants, being physical, creating that early separation, and getting that ball and driving upfield to get that first down. That's exactly what this offense is. It's putting those guys in the best positions to succeed. It just wasn't really executed at that point. But going forward to Seattle, you're going to see a slant to Jalen Brooks in a 2nd and long situation or so just to pick up that first down, because that's what he's best at, and that's what we see from this offense.
I will just add, just on top of that, I mean, Brooks was a little bit banged up in the game too. He had ankle tape and wrapped up. He said it was on one of the first passing plays of the game. He just kind of put a foot in the ground and it slipped a little bit, and it just kind of he's fine. He's not on the injury report, or at least he might be on the injury report if it showed up, but he would be a full participant. He's not missing time. But he just said, man, I wasn't 100%. I wasn't able to run the routes the way that I wanted to. I wasn't able to play with that ferocity that I've been showing in camp. I mean, there's a couple things there to think about with Jalen Brooks. I'm excited for him to be fully healthy and get a chance at it and to continue to roll.
The one thing that Nick said over and over, and it is so true, he was calling nice plays. It's just lack of execution. Will Grier wasn't on target for most of the first, when he first got in it, maybe his first 10 or 12 plays, he wasn't on target. The guys wasn't blocking the way by the time Deuce got in the game, because you saw him calling those plays, but all of a sudden they were working. Yeah. So it was about execution with me, and when I'm watching early in the year, he's still playing to these guys' strength. If you're this type of guy, if you're a runner, Dottle, you're a runner. I'm gonna run you. I'm gonna throw you the ball. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do that. And he's looking, but he's also trying to figure out what he can and cannot do with you. Yeah. So it still comes down to execution. Don't worry about the play calling. Coach that's why he was brought here. And I didn't speak to Coach for the first year because I was mad because I wanted him to call plays. Hey, how you doing, Coach? Hey, how you doing, Nate? I just look at him, But now, every time I see him, I'm hugging him. He's like, what's wrong with this guy? He's weird. No, I'm not weird. I love you, Coach. I want you to call plays.
I think something else that was interesting, you brought it up as far as the running backs, is it was kind of check down central.
Yes.
He talked about it in the press conference yesterday. They got 10 receptions to running backs, 31 total touches to running backs. So it's tough to bring out your entire offense when you're trying to figure out who is RB2, and you have to distribute those touches accordingly. So you're not going to see this full product, honestly, until like week 3, because there's still going to be some things to work through in the first couple weeks.
The preseason for you guys is scrimmage to me. Mm-hmm. The first 4 games of the year is preseason to me. Yeah, so you hear me talk scrimmage to preseason. Then about the 5th game, everybody should be in place. Normally the major injuries done happen and everybody done wooed and wild. How you doing, Coach Harris? Good to see you, man. You're great. Yeah.
Al, we have.
When I saw you, Coach, man, I'm ready.
Okay, Al Harris.
Coach, I'm ready too, Coach. I'll be there in a minute.
We've got an extra mic over here, Al, if you got time.
Love Al Harris. He's the best,
great,
man.
But, Nick, man, I'm going to do this openly. And because I like you.
I appreciate it.
We're going to give y'all Jesse Holly, and we're going to take Nick.
No, please don't. I love Jesse. I really do.
I love Jesse, too. He's very informative, but Nick is an O-line man.
He's an O-line guy. Yeah, that's exactly what this is. He's about to get fined. Tampering. Let's switch it. Since he's an offensive line man, let's switch it to the defense. Exactly. Get him off of his heyday. 360 says, curious on Wanye Thomas's play, the interception to start the game. He said, what better way to start on defense? That's Marco from Vancouver.
Let me say this right here. I'm going to have to defer to Nick and you because I'm telling you, I was not looking secondary. I was not looking at. And even linebackers, I admitted it. So, what do you guys think about these guys?
I will say about Wanye right off the bat. There's first off, there's no better way to start a game than to pick off Trevor Lawrence on his very first passing attempt. But I really like what I've seen from Wanye throughout training camp. He's been extremely physical. He's been in the right places. He's done his job, and I think that's what's so important to put him in that position to succeed. And there's more to that play than just getting the interception. It's being in that right place. But talking about his overall game performance, I liked what I saw from him. I think there were things that he has done out here that wasn't quite translated to the game field. But I overall, man, you have to like what Wanye's done. I think we talked about it, I think, last night a little bit.
Yes.
That safety conversation is getting a little interesting in the depth of that room because of the guys that are stepping up and showing their presence with Donovan Wilson being out with injury.
What do you think about the defensive front? Because you might not have been watching the secondary, but I know you were watching the defensive front.
I think the defense front played well. Osa, he's ready.
Yeah.
He's ready. So
I would take the pads off.
I would too.
I think I would wrap him up.
And I'll keep saying this same thing for Mozzie. Sir, you're not the strongest man in the NFL. There's some offensive linemen out there and when we was talking at camping out last night, and Patrick C was saying, hey, his strength this, his strength that, and I wanted to debate him, but I'm not going to debate him because
smart.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, because you never hear me say, or you'll rarely hear me say, I played. I'm not going that route. But I want to tell him, if I was playing against Mozzie, I would punch Mozzie right in his chest. And for the next 60 snaps, I know he's going to try to manhandle me. But guess who he won't touch? Yeah. My running back or my quarterback. Eat me alive, baby. That's what I'm here for. You get what I'm saying? Yeah. And that is my deal. You can't just sink into everybody.
Yeah.
On every play. You just can't throw it. Even if you take me and throw me, as long as you don't throw me back into the quarterback, who cares?
Yeah.
So, and that's what I'm trying to say. He has to learn to not only use that power, but take a step to the right, take a step to the left, close down. Because if he closes down the running game, the way these linebackers run, oh man, Leighton, Overshown, and Clark, but these dudes gonna kill some folks. And if they miss them, then number 41. My homeboy gonna get him.
Yep.
Yeah. Marquise Bell is who I'm talking about. We coming to get you, Donovan. You better stay on your game, baby. Yeah.
I'll say this about the defensive front. I think a guy that I really wanted to see more from, and I didn't, was Sam Williams. I expected him, being the guy that was in the quote-unquote Micah role on Saturday. They had him coming off both edges. They had him even dropping back at a couple of times. I wanted to see more from Sam Williams. I would like to see more from him in Seattle. So as far as Osa Odigizua having a great outing, go ahead, take the pads off him, put on the bubble wrap. Not quite with Sam Williams. I wanted him to get some more reps. I think he needs it going into the season because I think he's going to have a huge year too.
The thing is, and I don't know this, but he walked out of practice a couple of times early. Is he okay physically?
It's a shoulder. He's battling a shoulder problem, but it's not serious enough to where they would keep him out in the preseason. So I think he had separated it maybe at one point, popped it back in, and he's just kind of dealing with that. Football injury.
Yes.
Yeah, that's just a football injury.
All right, when we come back, speaking of a guy that's played through some injury before, he now has a new home. Ezekiel Elliott is now in New England. I want to talk about the running back position, then we'll wrap things up when we come back with more Talkin Cowboys right after this.
Todd thought it would be secure to jog in the cheetah savanna. Todd believed the big cat repellent he bought online was reliable. And now, Todd is trying to be faster than this cheetah that can run 80 miles per hour. But the good news is, Todd has AT&T 5G that is fast, reliable, and secure. And he learned the best thing to do is stop running and toss her the backpack with the beef stew. AT&T 5G. Fast, reliable, secure. It's not complicated.
5G requires compatible plan and device. 5G may not be available in your area. See att.com/5G for you for details.
Black Rifle Coffee Company serves premium coffee to people who love America. When you drink Black Rifle coffee, you are directly supporting veterans, law enforcement, and first responders in your community. Black Rifle's expert roasters love coffee almost as much as Texas loves football, so it makes sense that America's Coffee partnered with America's team. Go online at blackriflecoffee.com and fuel up with the official coffee of the Dallas Cowboys. That's blackriflecoffee.com to fuel up today.
Want to use the Cowboys locker room's favorite products? Check out the official men's skincare brand of the Dallas Cowboys, Jack Black. Right now, you can get the Jack Black Playmaker, a curated collection of Cowboys locker room favorites for just $10 with free shipping. The Playmaker includes 4 Jack Black skincare favorites, plus a full-sized Intense Therapy lip balm. Go to getjackblack.com/Cowboys and use the code word Cowboys. The Jack Black Playmaker, $10, free shipping.
Welcome back into Dear Doctor, the show where I answer life's questions with an ice-cold can of Dr. Pepper. Sheila, let's hear from our next caller, would you?
Dear Doctor, my friend supported me during a tough time, but what's the right gift that says, thanks for being a shoulder to cry on?
Okay, this one's easy. I say give her a delicious Dr. Pepper. Nothing says, thanks, girl, better than a one-of-a-kind soda. Yes, any Dr. Pepper flavor will do. Now, just a reminder that I don't need to be a real doctor to know that Dr. Pepper is the one you deserve.
Back to Talkin Cowboys.
Final segment of Talkin Cowboys is brought to you by Invisalign, the official smile of the Dallas Cowboys. Of course, presented by Black Rifle Coffee Company, the official coffee of America's team, alongside Nick Harris, formerly Nate Newton. Nate had some other duties. He's got to go.
He's a busy man.
He's got to go host the fans as the Cowboys Nation gets ready to file in the gates here and get ready for practice on Tuesday. Have one more padded practice tomorrow, and then it's off to Seattle on Friday to really get ready for that second preseason game. One other news and note that we've got to hit, Ezekiel Elliott has signed a one-year deal, $6 million in New England. He is now officially a part of the New England Patriots. It's a bittersweet day, I think, for those that cover the team and those that cheered for the Cowboys really since 2016.
And those on the team as well.
Yeah, no doubt. The fact that he is officially no longer going to wear the star on the side of his helmet, but also the fact that he has a chance to go and show out in New England. I put out a tweet yesterday. I'm super happy for Zeke. Yeah. I really am. I'm pumped that he got a spot. He's in a good situation with a great coaching staff. And outside of week 4, I hope he puts up great numbers.
Yeah.
I hope he has a great year. What are your thoughts on his signing and also how that could affect really the long-term visibility of this running back?
I'll even say him scoring in week 4. There'll be some cheers in the crowd if that does happen.
There'll be a couple. But there'll be a couple boos, but there'll be a couple cheers.
Absolutely. But, I'm super excited for Ezekiel Elliott, not only getting an opportunity like he's going to have in New England to, take on a bigger role than he even had last year. He's going to be alongside Ramondre Stevenson. I think that's a really fun running back duo. He's going to be able to make some things happen in that running back room and on that offense. But not only the fact that he's on a team, but also he's going back to 15. He's going back to the old hairstyle. He's tapping into, who he was whenever he came into this league. So, I'm excited for his new opportunity. I think he's going to flourish in it. I think he's going to have a really big year. I would have him as my flex on my fantasy team.
Okay.
Just to have
just
him
in case,
around. Keep him around.
Just as a possibility there.
Yeah.
I like that idea. Now, would you keep any of the guys that showed out as RB2 or 3 or 4 or 5 on Saturday? Would you keep them as your flex on your fantasy team if they played for the Dallas Cowboys?
Man, that's a good one, Kyle. I like how you put that one. Right now, no. Just because we've talked about it, I don't think there's a cemented guy that's number 2 right now. You can make a case for any 4 or 5 of those guys, and I'd be like, okay, that makes sense. I think there's a logistical debate for every guy that's vying for that spot. Let's run them down really quick. Rico Dowdle, he shows that burst. He's got kind of that big body set. He's going to be probably one of your better pass protectors in that room. Deuce Vaughn kind of speaks for itself, but he's going to have that big playability. He's going to be the fan favorite. He's going to be huge out of the receiving game and on special teams. You got Malik Davis, similar to both of those guys. He's got that burst. Maybe needs a little bit more improvement in pass pro. He had a really bad moment in the game on Saturday, and it was kind of being thrown into the fire right in those first couple of drives for Malik Davis. I'd like to see him get some more valuable reps on Saturday in Seattle. But then Ronald Jones, obviously he's dealing with that 2-game suspension to start the season and with the groin injury out here, still trying to work him back into the rotation. If he does get back in, he's going to have to make a splash immediately just because he's having less opportunity as each day goes by. And then Hunter Lipke, really quick. Great in pass protection, probably the best one of that group. And he's going to get you those hard-fought, short yardage yards.
Do you think that gives a better shot for a guy like Hunter Lipke to make the roster than even Ronald Jones? And that's not necessarily knocking Ronald Jones. He's just got an uphill battle knowing that his contract's more expensive.
Yeah.
He's dealing with a suspension, and right now he's dealing with an injury.
Yeah, I would think so for a couple of reasons. A, Lipke is a lot younger, coming in in as a rookie, and B, I think he's a lot more versatile. You know, he's shown at North Dakota State, and he's shown even out here that he can do a little bit more things. He can be that pass protector. He can take a couple of receptions out of the backfield if he needs to. He can, get those harder and short yardage yards. You know, his very first carry came in plus territory. It was around the 30-yard line, I think, on Saturday, and he just bulldozed a couple of guys to get 5-6 yards. And I was like, yeah, that's that bison
there
that
it
I want to
is.
see. So, I would love to see Lipke get some more reps. I don't think he's going to be RB2 here by any stretch of the imagination, but I think he'd be a really fun guy to keep around.
I can't wait to see how this running back room unfolds, and we'll have another chance at it on Saturday to see them against Seattle. Seattle's got a pretty deep front seven too. I mean, the more that you look at their defense, they have some names that are on both the first and second teams, depending on even if they play the starters. I think you'll see a good amount of talent from a running back standpoint, so it's going to be a good test for this offensive line again. It'll be a great test for the running backs and to see their explosiveness, their ball security, if you're talking about Rico Dowdle.
Yep.
So for the most part, I think Saturday will possibly provide some clearance. I don't think this past Saturday did.
Yep.
If anything, it just showed Deuce Vaughn can play, which we kind of expected and we were excited to see. But now you've got a chance to see it flourish a little bit more. You can say, okay, Deuce Vaughn can really play, or maybe Rico Dowdle is your number 2 back. But it gives you some clarity as opposed to maybe looking outside and potentially finding another one of those veteran running backs that are on the market.
Yeah, and we talked about it with Nate as far as the offensive line. That trickles down to all of these position groups, just consistency. And I think that's all they're trying to look for in an RB2, a guy that they can bring in whenever Tony Pollard needs to step off the field, and they know what they're going to get out of him. That could be 3 yards, that could be 7 yards. It's just let's see consistency there. So I think that's probably the biggest thing that we're looking for in these next 2 weeks in the preseason. I think that's why the spotlight is so bright, because fans just want to see fans just want to see that guy that is consistently showing up every week. Right now it's Deuce Vaughn.
I just can't believe we got 45 minutes into the show before we had our first Deuce Vaughn mention after what happened on Saturday.
That's very true.
So we apologize, Deuce, but hey, we got you in there, and we'll talk plenty more about it.
He's got some airtime. He's got some airtime.
He'll be all right. He'll be all right. Thursday, we'll be back with another Talkin Cowboys, 9 a.m. on the Pacific Coast, 11 a.m. Central Time. Patrick No-C Walker will make his triumphant return on Thursday.
We're going to steal him back.
We're taking him back. We may even try and take Nate back. Who knows? Oh, wait, Nate's leaving on Wednesday.
Dang.
So we'll have Patrick for sure on Thursday with more of the show. For Chris Bean behind the camera, for Nick Harris, Nate Newton, I'm Kyle Youmans saying so long. We'll see you next time on Talkin Cowboys, presented by Black Rifle Coffee Company.
This has been a production of DallasCowboys.com and the Dallas Cowboys Football Club.
How about this?